Welcome back to Horror and I've got Archie over here this time. I have Duckle over here. Hold on, is Archie even in view? Yeah, that'll do. I don't want him here because I have the microphone and I also just. This gets difficult. I want to fully present, you know? I want to be. I don't know, I just can't be bothered carrying him to be honest. So, sorry, buddy. Anyway, welcome back to Horror and this week I will be ranking, you have guessed it, and you can read the title, but all of the deaths from Final Destination 5, and I will be including the death of the person that wasn't in the premonition, just in case anyone was gonna question that. I'm just doing the same as all the previous ones, just all the death scenes, except for the opening accident. And my goodness, will he get it right this time? Probably not, but I'm going to try. And that's all that matters. And so, coming in 10th place, and I really hope that is correct, we have Jim, who gets shot. Pretty plain and simple. The idea that someone can steal someone else's lifespan is introduced into this film, and death just wants death, doesn't care who. And so if you kill, then you've done his job and he's fine with it. This idea of stealing someone's life is kind of discussed throughout. And then we have this police officer who just, or this detective or whatever, and he just gets shot. It's just quite boring. I mean, there's a little bit of a surprise there in that, like, you don't necessarily know it's about to happen, but it's not interesting in terms of we're watching a Final Destination film and we're expecting a bunch of explosive and gory and traumatic scenes, and we get a scene where someone just gets shot. And I will say, I'll give it credit where I think it didn't need to make this a huge deal, and obviously death wasn't targeting the police officer, so for them to die in this weird elaborate way wouldn't make sense story wise, so I'll give them credit for not actually just trying to make it elaborate when it shouldn't be. But it doesn't mean I didn't think the death was just a bit boring in terms of what I want to see in these films. So yeah, narratively it made sense. For my enjoyment, unfortunately not so much. Coming in at number 9, we have Peter getting impaled on that giant skewer looking thing. Not sure entirely what it was, but it was found in a kitchen. I think it's what you have, like, you have big bits of meat on. I don't know. Anyway, this again, it's a person killing another person, so it's not going to be extremely gory, and I'll give them again credit where credit's due. Narratively, it made sense that it wasn't this over-the-top, crazy set-up death, but also at the same time, they did enough interesting things with it that it wasn't an entirely boring moment comparatively to the other deaths in the film, but at the same time, comparing them to the other deaths in the film, it wasn't up there. It wasn't super interesting. It was just, again, another kind of surprise. Oh, and they're dead. They've just been stabbed. And albeit it could have just been with a knife, but instead they decided to go for that, like, 5-pronged skewer thing, which was pretty cool. But in terms of the build-up, in terms of the suspense, in terms of gore, it just wasn't up there, and so that's why it comes in at the number 9th place. Coming in number 8, we have Roy, who falls on a hook. Now, yet again, there's this idea of stealing someone's lifespan, and it didn't end up quite high on the list, although I will say that this one is a bit more interesting in that A, the character doesn't intend on killing the other character, it is purely accidental. B, there's some satisfaction in the idea that this character isn't a nice guy, so you don't really mind. I mean, he's not, he has a good reason to be upset, which is why he's arguing but with our other character, but he's still not the nicest guy. And C, 3, was I counting or doing alphabet? I don't know. It is interesting in that it's a bit gory and it's a bit shocking, and although you can kind of see it coming, you don't know it's going to be him, but you can see it coming that one of them's about to die. It's it's a more interesting thing than just having the character shoot him or stab him. So I'll give them that, but I think in terms of all of the other deaths, the gore for me, it was there, certainly is there, just didn't entice me. it wasn't super shocking, and it wasn't super built up, and it wasn't super gory. It was kind of middle ground of all of these, and so there wasn't one factor of it that was shouting out to me, making me love it. I think the build up, yeah, that's certainly there, in that there's the argument going on, and the characters know to steal a life, you gain a life, sort of thing, and so that's in the back of their minds. But beyond that, there's not much more to it. And so that's why it comes in at 8th place. In 7th place, we have Sam dying on the aeroplane. Now, I will say again, this one, it tied in the film to the first film. That was interesting. I really enjoyed that. And I thought that was a very clever way of making it make sense as to why these characters weren't aware of what had happened before, so that we didn't have to yet again have the narrative of this happened to these people, this happened to this other group of people, this happened to this other group of people. So it was nice to have that. And the fact that they get on the plane and you almost don't even question it until you see the other premonition happen, like the characters from the first film having their moment. It's a nice way to tie it all together, and when they're on the plane go, they're in trouble. But saying that, it also was the main character of the film, and he essentially died in an explosion, which just wasn't super interesting. It was very, again, narratively it made a lot of sense, and I give them credit for doing it that way. And they didn't make the plane just simple and boring and have both characters die by burning on it. But in terms of what I want in a Final Destination film, it didn't pay up for the main character's final death. Saying that, none of the main characters have had interesting on-screen death. The only two that have had on-screen deaths are number 3 and number 4. Even number 3 wasn't on screen, and number 4 was X-Ray. So I'll give them again more credit that they even just showed us that the main character dies and how they die, and didn't try and do any cop-out, but it just didn't grip me. Just wasn't gory, just didn't have me. I'm sorry, just didn't have me. Coming in number 6, we have Isaac getting acupuncture and then getting his head squashed by a statue. This is where we're starting to go into the ones that I really enjoy in this film. It just builds up so nicely as there's the acupuncture going on, and if you've seen the trailer, you knew something was going to happen with the acupuncture. I can't remember if they show it or not, him falling off the bed or the table, but he's getting his acupuncture, and although you're kind of sat there going, how could this kill him though? These are little wooden like picks, they're not metal spikes that could just like go through your skull, they would break. But saying that, yeah, he still falls after getting acupuncture, after this whole build up, and you're like, he doesn't know he's gonna die soon, and he's getting acupuncture, which is already to a lot of people a terrifying thought. And then he falls off and he has to like pick the skewers out of himself, and then it goes from bad to worse, and there's a fire, and then he gets launched back by the fire, and then the statue falls off of the shelf and just splatters his head. Now, the acupuncture aspect of this, I love. I think it was a great way to build suspense, and it's also, again, playing on one of those fears that it's like, it's not really that scary. It's a form of like therapy, massage. It's a form of enjoying. It's supposed to be, you enjoy it. It's meant for enjoyment and de-stress. And so putting someone in that situation makes you think, oh great, they found another thing that people can commonly go and make it actually worse for you. The head getting splattered, you could tell it was CGI, like it wasn't very good in that one moment, so wasn't a huge fan of that. But the whole build-up I did like, and so that's why it's in 6th place. In 5th place, we have Nathan, who gets the plane tire landing on him. Now, this one, I wasn't actually sure whether to put it high or low on the list, because I have a lot of mixed feelings about it. But what I did like about it was the fact that you, again, went, oh, well, a character survived these films, so that's great, because it's not the first time that a character has survived the films, and you're like, good for him, he's done it. He feels bad because he accidentally killed someone, but you know, he's not going to let that stop his life, you know? He's got to just keep going. And the plane explodes and you're like, wow, you thought there was going to be 3 survivors. No, don't be silly. There's only going to be 1. And then it's like, it's either the post-credit or it's right near the end, or it's the last scene before the credits, and he's at this party, or well, party memorial thing celebrating the guy who died, and they were like, it's a shame because he had a brain tumor or something and was going to die soon anyway. And it's at that moment the guy is like, wait a minute, so my lifespan that I've stolen is still short. And the tire from the plane falls through the roof, crushes him, kills him, sends an arm flying to the screen, and it's just a nice little way to end the film. This was one of the shocking moments that actually you didn't necessarily expect, because you kind of were like, okay, this character's actually made it to the end. Although I will say, after the plane had exploded, the fact that they then brought us back to this character instantly meant that he was not going to survive, because why even bother telling us? Compared to the other two main characters, he wasn't that important in the film. But anyway, it was a shocking moment. It was funny, but it was also like a good way to end the film. And so that's why it comes in 5th place. In 4th place, we have the screwdriver going through Dennis's head. I don't think most people like this one, but I do, because the character was a bit weird. He's that actor that's been in quite a few things. He was in Piranhas, I'm pretty sure, Piranhas 3 Double D. He's been in other stuff that's similar, but he just didn't know most of this was going on, and then kind of as soon as he was realizing it was going on, it was like, it was one of those, it's kind of happened in other films where it's like, who's next? And they tell you by just showing you right there and then who gets killed. It happened with the girl that was supposed to be on the roller coaster that I love getting the pole through the back of her spine. It happened to the girl that gets hit by the bus, you know. It happens a few times, but I think in this one it was just, you didn't necessarily expect it was going to happen until you heard the line, or you kind of got the gist of the situation. And being a fan of the film, you were like, okay, cool, so someone's literally about to die, but who is it? And then splat, it's Dennis. And it was a funny moment to me, and it wasn't taking itself too seriously, but it was still a bit gory, and all in all, I just quite enjoyed the moment. So that's why it's in 4th place. Coming in 3rd place, we have Molly on the airplane, or technically off the airplane. Compared to the other two that died in the airplane, it's just by far my favorite. I really enjoyed that they took the scene, as I said earlier, from the first film and put it at the end of the 5th film to kind of tie it all together, but didn't just boringly kill her by burning her on the plane. Now, it doesn't make too much sense in terms of what we see in the first film for them to add this scene, but I don't care, because these films aren't meant to be taken super seriously, in my opinion. And so the fact that they threw her out the side of the plane, the fact she was clinging on to her boyfriend, trying to survive any way she could, even though it didn't even matter, honestly, she would probably have been better to fall out the plane and then, you know, maybe land on a tree instead of burning alive in the explosion, because you are for sure going to die if that's the case. But no, she gets flung out the side of the plane and hits the wing and gets split in half, and she's gone. That's it. Goodbye. And also, I don't know why, but the actor has a soft, I just hit the microphone, a soft spot in my heart. She was in The Walking Dead. She's in Frozen, not the Disney classic. It's not a classic. It came out like, more years ago than, I hope you didn't see that, more years ago than I care to admit anyway, the horror film about the ski trip that goes wrong, check it out. I really enjoy it. I don't know why, but yeah. Anyway, it was just a very nice way to make that final scene more interesting, and it's just like it's kind of a horrible thought. Again, I don't know that it makes much sense. I don't think she would fly. Well, maybe, I don't know. You would have to do some maths on how quickly the plane was moving for her and how far she was from the wing for her not to just fall past it. But, you know, it was cool. It was a nice way to freshen up that scene, because they clearly had planned it to be a prequel, and so they made it more interesting by not having all of the characters die just simply in the explosion. Coming in 2nd place, and this is probably obvious because, again, I did the top 5 first, which I probably should have done last, now coming to think about it, because all of the ones that were in my top 5 were going to be near the top of these lists. But coming in 2nd place is Olivia getting laser eye surgery, which you must have guessed because the other scene was in my top 5. But yes, this scene, again, it plays on one of those fears that's very justified. Getting laser eye surgery is not something that I expect anyone to enjoy, but it's something that is designed to be very safe. It's a medical practice in fixing your eyesight. It's wouldn't, well, I mean, I don't know. I haven't done research into it. I don't need laser eye surgery, but I'm sure they wouldn't let it happen if the risk factor was that high. I'm also sure they wouldn't leave you alone in the room with it. I'm also sure that they have backup protocol, and I'm also sure that the laser just wouldn't be strong enough, or they wouldn't make a laser that could get strong enough to do the damage it does to her. But saying all that, that's irrelevant, because that's not what these films are about. There's the build-up. You know she's getting laser eye surgery, so you're instantly like, cool, that's not going to work out well for her. And then, of course, one thing goes wrong, another thing goes wrong, the button gets pushed. She realizes something's going wrong, so tries to stop it, and it's at the point she tries to stop it that it gets even worse. The laser starts burning through her eye. She puts her hand in front of her eye. It started burning through her hand. It's horrible. The idea that it is just tearing her eye apart is horrible. And the only reason that this isn't in the number 1 spot is because after this all happens, she doesn't die from the laser eye surgery. She's okay. She's not okay. She's probably lost sight completely in one of her eyes, but she gets up, she panics, she steps on the eye of the teddy bear that she was holding that she accidentally ripped out, and she falls out the window. And she falls and lands on a car, and then her eye pops out and it rolls. And I mean, it's a gross moment. The eye popping out is horrible. And then it gets run over by a car, and that's horrible as well. And I really enjoy the scene, but I do think that the one moment that she just steps on the eye of the teddy bear and falls is just really stupid, because it wouldn't happen. And I mean, okay, I don't know what windows are like in America, but I know for sure in the UK, if you were to fall into most windows, particularly someone who of her weight, which I can assume isn't super heavy, you wouldn't fall through the window, you would just hit it. She also stumbles, but then doesn't even just fall, she like takes 2 steps and then falls. That moment in itself I just found a little bit ridiculous, and I would have rather they found a more interesting way to, if they wanted her to fall out the window, make it so that she has a better reason to fall out the window. But saying that, all in all, I think the scene is very good. As I said, the build-up is great, the gore is great, the tension is great, because she's in pain for like a good couple minutes before she even dies. It's not like a sudden surprise one. I just think that one moment where she fell out the window wasn't the cleverest way the writers could have finished her scene. But saying that, I love it all the same. And if you've seen the film, if you've seen my other video, I'm sure you could have guessed it. But coming in the number 1 spot is Candace doing her gymnastics. The full description I'm sure is in the other video as well. You can watch that if you want the more in-depth one, because I was only covering 5 instead of 10 deaths in that one. But I'm going to summarize it anyway. The whole scene, the build-up, gymnastics, already a lot of people watch that sport because something might go wrong, and it's terrible that human beings do that. It's like when people watch car races, some people just watch it for the crashes. Some people watch gymnastics just to see if the person does a cartwheel and ends up breaking their wrist. I don't know. I don't hope this on anyone, but I know people watch it for that reason. So the fact that they gave us a 5-minute long gymnastics scene while baiting 5 different things that could go wrong. There's the nail on the balance beam. Already just being on a balance beam could go wrong. Being on a bar could go wrong. The nail on the floor could go wrong. The fan that the screws are coming loose could go wrong. The water dripping on the floor could go wrong. There's so many things that could go wrong in this scene, and for 5 minutes you're waiting to see what's going to happen. You see the nail on the bar, but you're like, that's not going to kill anyone. How on earth is someone going to fall on a tiny little nail that's going to kill them? But of course, in the end, that's not what happens. You know, she might have got electrocuted, but she doesn't. Someone else steps on the nail, falls off, knocks the chalk. Chalk hits her in the face as she is doing some nice spins on that beam, and she goes whoosh, 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 splat, and out goes that bone in her knee, out goes a little bit of her spine. It's just very gory, very gross, The build-up is super satisfying, and the payoff is there as well. The bit that does get me, and I can't remember if I said this in the other video because I filmed it like 6 weeks ago, 2 months ago now, but it's the person being like, someone phone an ambulance, like she ain't dead. She's like, her legs are literally over the back of her head, bent backwards with bones sticking out of her body, and they're like, phone an ambulance. I'm sorry. I don't care how good a medical professional you are, you ain't saving her. She gone. She gone. But all in all, great scene. It was the first death in the film, and they like to do this in most of the films. The first death tends to be quite a good one because it's within the first half an hour of the film, the big accidents happen. There needs to be a lot of build up because the audience, at least at this point, know what's going to happen, but the characters don't have a clue, and so they're not even looking for danger, and yet there's danger all around them. And eventually, yes, the character dies. It's a great moment. Satisfied me. I'm sure it satisfied the rest of the audience. It was a great use of everything that these films try and show. And so that is why Candace is in the #1 spot. And as a little extra, I also really enjoy her death in the premonition at the start. I'm not gonna say it's my favorite because I'll probably make a video on those as well eventually, but I do really enjoy it. I don't know why, but there's something about people getting impaled through the back that I just really enjoy. But anyway, I'll save the rest of that for another video, and for now, thank you for watching Horror and I, with Archie over here just staring you down. Duckle sat like a little potato over here, and me sat like, I don't know where I'm going with this, but yes, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you have different opinions, tell me your order, tell me your favorite or your least favorite. If you disagree with me, that's fine. This is opinions. I don't care. You're wrong, I'm right, and that's how it is. It's okay. But thank you for watching. If you're new, subscribe, and see you next time on... Nope, that's not how I end it. But thank you for watching. Horror and I rank all of the Final Destination 5 death scenes. Laters. What am I doing with my life?